Hey guys, LevelCap here, and welcome to This Week in Gaming, your weekly news update on everything going on in the world of video games. And this week we got some major news about future content for Battlefield 6. Ubisoft is facing even more turmoil than usual. Embark teased a 2026 roadmap for Arc Raiders, there's a new Minecraft competitor out, and much more. The Season 2 update for Battlefield 6 has been delayed by 4 weeks. It'll launch on February 17th. Officially, DICE says that this delay will allow extra time to address community feedback. Season 1 was fine, but just not particularly content-rich, plus it brought a bunch of bugs and kind of throwaway game modes. To try and make up for the delay, DICE has added more challenges, cosmetics, and double XP to the ongoing Season 1 content. The game is also getting an update on the 20th that'll make several tweaks to balance, fix gameplay bugs, and refine the game's overall UI to improve menu navigation, armor bar visibility, and more. Of course, it's also worth mentioning that DICE and EA have likely been scrambling while dealing with the monumental loss of the franchise general manager Vince Zampella. His sudden passing in a car accident on December 21st shook the game industry and likely left DICE with a lot of big decisions and nobody to make them. And to that end, it sounds like EA might have hired the Division's co-director, Julian Garrity, as an interim replacement for Zampella. He announced he was leaving Ubisoft today for a role at EA under the umbrella of the Battlefield Studios. Speaking of Ubisoft, the company made more sweeping layoffs this week. They shut down a studio in Halifax, affecting 71 employees just days after the studio officially unionized. Later in the week, Ubisoft laid off 55 employees at Massive, the studio behind The Division and Star Wars Outlaws. In fact, Julian Garrity, who just left the company, was teasing the next game in the Division franchise, saying in an interview that the studio is working extremely hard on something that I think will have as big an impact as Division 1 did. This was in direct response to a question about The Division 3. Massive confirmed that the game was in active development back in 2023, but they really haven't said much about it since then. There's also leaks and rumors suggesting that Ubisoft is releasing a definitive edition of Division 1 that'll offer graphics and gameplay improvements, though nothing has been officially confirmed. Embark is teasing some big plans for Arc Raiders content later this year. A dev at the studio said a roadmap is coming soon and to expect multiple maps in 2026 across a variety of sizes. Specifically, they said to expect maps that are both bigger and smaller than the current maps. We might also be getting maps with new natural weather or even disaster events like a volcano map or one with a toxic swamp. Arc Raiders recently passed 12 million total sales and broke its concurrent player count record again this month. As a thank you, the devs released a gilded pickaxe cosmetic all players can claim as a free in-game gift. The long-awaited competitor to Minecraft, Hytale, finally launched this week to pretty solid reviews across the board. The game is currently in early access and has a base price of $20. And while it bears a striking resemblance to Minecraft, it's clear that they have plenty to differentiate themselves. The first patch for Hytale launched today with a variety of small changes and bug fixes. And if you're interested in a more in-depth look at the game, stay tuned to the end of this video for a link to my review. A wild claim about Monster Hunter Wild's poor performance on PC made the rounds this week. A Redditor claimed disabling the game's ability to check for DLC purchases massively improved performance on PC. And while this claim is generally true and has been verified by Digital Foundry, it only affects a very specific situation. In the hub world, one of the vendors serves as a point of sale for the game's DLCs. When you get close enough to the vendor, it triggers the game to check if you own those DLCs. The process can slow the game down by up to 25%, according to Digital Foundry's findings. That said, the performance drop only happens when you're close enough to the specific vendor and generally doesn't impact gameplay beyond that. Roblox has rolled out an AI-based age verification system, and it's going about as badly as you might expect. In response, there's already a market for child-aged accounts on eBay. The AI is also apparently pretty easy to bypass by using pictures of adults. Once an account is verified, it places an age bracket like 13 to 20 or 9 to 17. However, inaccuracies with the age detection have resulted in accounts being verified as much older or much younger than the person actually owning them. As expected, many users are protesting the system and alleging that it doesn't really do much to actually protect children from gaining access to dangerous parts of the game. Anthem officially went offline forever this week. The servers were shut down on the 12th, locking everyone out of the game and making it impossible to play even in an offline capacity. And while players are hopeful that modders will come up with a way of continuing to play the game, so far nothing has actually materialized. The game allegedly had support for offline play, according to a former BioWare executive producer. However, that support was removed before launch. They say that the code for it could potentially be salvaged, but there's no telling how long that would take or who would even do the work. Meta is making sweeping changes to their VR business this week. They shut down 3 major studios who were making VR games. Plus, they shut down their Quest for Business program that used VR hardware and software in the commercial space for things like VR meetings and presentations. Overall, they cut 1,500 jobs at their Reality Labs division, which was primarily responsible for all of Meta's VR games and metaverse products. Meta basically strong-armed themselves to become the biggest name in VR gaming, and now it seems like they're sort of pulling the plug. And while there's still competition from Valve and some indie scene stuff going on for VR content, it seems pretty much undeniable right now that there's just basically a massive crash happening for VR gaming. Meta's VR headsets are the most popular devices on the market, and their VR game store was probably the biggest in the industry. It's unclear where VR gaming will go as Meta shrinks their footprint in the space, but it might come down to Valve or other studios to see if they want to try and keep the technology alive. A mod that turns Rockstar's cult hit Bully into a GTA Online style experience has officially been taken down by its creators. The devs of the mod say that they're scrubbing it from all outlets and have shut the servers down, but they haven't given a reason why. It's speculated that they were issued a cease and desist from Rockstar. Bully is a single-player Rockstar game and one of the few titles that the studio hasn't re-released or remastered over the years. It's got a pretty dedicated fan base, and so the hype for the mod was pretty widespread among the game's audience. Rockstar recently launched a mod store for Grand Theft Auto 5 featuring the roleplay mods that have basically become synonymous with the game's online presence. So maybe there's some overlap in that timing, or if they're just trying to protect their IPs more, who knows. In our final story this week, Anthem isn't the only high-profile game leaving players out in the cold. Amazon's MMO New World is officially getting the axe on January 31st, 2027. The game was delisted from online platforms this week, making it impossible to access unless you already own the game or have a key for it. Amazon Game Studios struggled to get any games to market for several years, with multiple games either getting canceled before release or quickly pulled from sale after launch. New World was their first title to both launch and stay active afterwards, but it experienced a sharp decline in player counts just months after launch, dropping from nearly 1 million concurrent players at its peak to just 10,000 on a good day. From there, it's steadily dwindled. Today, it's averaging around 1,200 concurrent players on Steam. Now, if you want to check out my first impressions for Hytale, that video is right here. I highly recommend it. I think we could be seeing the start of something that could be mega. Built to support mods from the ground up, there's no telling what Hytale could eventually become. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.